Hello, this is Alex, and in this short Lightroom video I want to show how to get a very dramatic black and white rendition in Lightroom Classic with just a couple of key steps and mouse clicks. This technique works best for low contrast scenes, relatively low contrast scenes, such as this hazy landscape here in San Diego's backcountry on a monsoon weather day on the Laguna crest. In the first step, obviously, I switch to black and white. And then, and this is one of the key points, I drop the exposure to -5. And the other key to this technique is pushing the whites all the way up. I do this by watching my histogram so that I don't blow out the whites. And this is like at 85. You see my highlight warning here comes on. I leave it at that because these clouds need to be taken care of anyway, because the foreground is still pretty dark at this point, so I need to balance that anyway. I will choose a linear gradient here and set this to -1, and then I bring these clouds further down and I place that linear gradient here, and then I have gained a lot more room for pushing the whites even further. So once more, I watch my histogram as I push the whites further and further. Here to 95, maybe I go to 96. And I have some hot spots here in those clouds now, but this is a good value, and you can see how dramatic the effect already is here. I switch from this to this, essentially a slider here, a linear gradient to balance the sky. That was it. So now what's left is just doing some refinements of this, right? But those were the key points. And what would these refinements look like? I would add a brush here to address these hotspots in the clouds. I have created a preset for myself here, Highlight Tamer, I call it. Funny name, I know. Half a step down in exposure, all the way down in the highlights, and negative clarity. And I zoom in here and I turn on my highlight warning, because even though that doesn't show here, there's actually some highlights here, as you can see. And these only show when I'm zoomed in. So I can click on this arrow here, or I can press the J key on the keyboard. And then with my brush that I usually have set to a flow of just -50 so that I can brush over an area multiple times, I fix those highlight areas here with individual mouse clicks, so that I apply only a very small amount of brushing to those areas here. Individual mouse clicks. And you can hear my mouse going here. I zoom out and there's more in the clouds here. Like so. And there's more here. And here at the top we're looking good. There's nothing that needs to be taken care of. Very nice. And it looks like we actually gained maybe one more step here for our whites. Not quite. 96, it's the limit. Okay, so now I want to get a little bit more drama into this foreground area here, which is still a little bit dull. And a great way to achieve that is for such a rendition here to just add clarity, local contrast. Oops, I'm still in my brush here. So clarity, what I always like to do is just play with those sliders globally to see where they have a beneficial effect and where they don't. And I like the overall effect here for the foreground areas, but it doesn't look so good in the clouds. So I simply go back to my mask number 1, where I already work with the sky. And then I use a negative clarity here for these areas and essentially nullify the effect that I applied globally to the sky here. This mountain here in the background is called Monument Peak, and it looks a little bit dark now. So maybe I intersect this mask with a sky selection. I press Option, or on Windows the Alt key. The intersect button appears instead of the add and subtract buttons. And I choose Select Sky. And this creates a better looking rendition now. So I guess I could have almost chosen a Select Sky for this adjustment as well. But I'm always a little bit skeptical about the transitions that Select Sky alone creates. So this looks better. I might want to push the shadows up a little bit to get these dark cloud shadows here out of the deepest blacks. And maybe I even want to push the blacks up a little bit further. And looking at the tonal distribution here, I have this gradient from dark to light here that I maybe want to balance a little bit. So I would use another brush. This time I choose a dodge tool, and then maybe I brush over this slope here and the edge of the cliff here along this ridge. And you see the way I brush here with my flow set to 50 is very painterly. Maybe I accent this little hill a little bit. That looks very nice. That background ridge here too. Just carefully brushing into that. That might be a little bit much. So I switch to my erase brush by holding the Alt or Option key. And I set my flow down to 30. And then I take a little bit away from this here. Alright, I switch back to my highlight tamer brush here because I noticed that in here when I added the clarity, this introduced some highlight clipping on this white band of rock here in the mountain. So I take care of those small highlight areas. And with this, I think I have a pretty nice result considering how very little time I had to spend on this. Again, the key points: drop the exposure all the way, push the whites up as far as you can, balance the sky or the brightest parts a little bit, and then refine the whole thing with a little bit of brushing. We went from this to this, and if it hadn't been for me talking, then this whole thing would have probably taken less than 2 minutes. I hope you liked the technique. Thank you for watching. Bye.